Okay, thank you everyone for joining. So today we will start with on-premises versus cloud comparison. See, we have discussed compute, we have discussed network, and we have started with storage now. Okay, so when you understand about the cloud offering, see there are a lot of stuff that we are not managing. See when it comes to network switches, routers, and all those components have become a kind of logical or a virtual entity. Similarly, like we are not managing the server hardware. Microsoft or Amazon, whoever is the cloud provider, they are managing the hardware for us. Similarly here, whatever the computing environment, for example, if you want to have storage, okay, we need to have a storage array. And in order to manage that storage array, definitely there needs some kind of computing environment. So it needs a storage processor, it needs a storage controller, and through which it allocates the data or they allocate the storage capacity into small lens or a small usable unit, right? So computing environment, server or storage or network hardware, even the very important part when it comes to cloud is the capacity planning, capacity management. In on-premises, as part of your IT service management, you have a separate portfolio called capacity management. But when it comes to cloud, okay, capacity is as kind of an expandable option. So you can keep adding content or keep adding data based on your requirement. It's a kind of what do you call it? It's like uh, use as per or expand as per usage, right? You need to only pay for what you are consuming or what you are using. So capacity planning, you don't have to really break your head here. So you can keep asking for more capacity as the need arises, right? That's how the cloud environment works. Whereas in your premises, on the premises, in your data center, if you need more capacity, you need to find out whether the storage array has got more capacity, and if in case it doesn't have, you have to go and find out if there is any space for adding more disk. You need to go with the procurement, you need to find out what is the compatible disk model and all those stuff, and it takes multiple days or multiple weeks to get the data or get the storage expanded. But in the cloud, it's like on the fly, you can keep expanding based on your requirement. Then again, when it comes to your server hardware or storage hardware or everywhere, there is licensing involved. Okay, you need to deal with the licenses, you need to find out you need to take care of the warranty, you need to take care of the maintenance, you need to take care of a lot of management related stuff, right? Those are all something which is kind of outsourced now. So even not just this, see on the premises in your data center, you need to have a lot of labor cost involved. You need to have people to install, upgrade, and maintain. So Sanjay, any questions from your side? Okay, if not, I'll mute your line. Sorry. Yeah. So, yeah, the labor cost is completely taken off. See, when I say labor cost, when you want to add new storage array, you need to place that in a rack, racking, stacking, cabling, installing the firmware or upgrading the firmware, maintaining the iOS firmware. All those are kind of tough tasks to handle, and also it involves a lot of downtime. You need to work with different application owners, different server owners, and so on. So there is a lot of activity that is outsourced. And as I told you, the capacity planning is on the fly. So scalability, you can keep expanding, keep adding more capacity as need arises. And even you will have a lot of availability compared to your own data center. In the cloud, you have multiple availability zone, availability set, where you can have data scattered across multiple physical data center. Even if the entire physical data center goes down, your data can still be available. Even if your geographical region goes down, even you can have your data as a geo redundant availability, right? And whatever support that you need, you all get it from the cloud provider. Whenever you want to have some kind of activity done, you can work with single vendor, which is Microsoft in this case, and get it done. So all these are taken care by the cloud provider. These are all a lot of work that is that also needs change management practice and a lot of other ITSM practices involved. See, when I say, for example, the labor cost, you need to upgrade the OS on your server storage, even in the network products, even that has got its own iOS and all those stuff. When it comes to storage, you have to take care of the bad disks replacement, or even what do you call, if you want to upgrade the firmware, that is also involving a lot of time, firmware maintenance. And if you want to add more disk capacity, add more disks, or storage expansion, so all these are seamless for you. Okay, so this is completely taken care by whether it is a physical device addition, or if you want to move the backend uh, storage data from one storage array to another storage array. It's all done without your involvement. Microsoft takes care of complete ownership, and in most aspect, the total cost of ownership remains with Microsoft. So you are paying as per your usage in terms of data capacity. Okay, so this is applicable for network, this is applicable for server, and now we are going to discuss on the storage topic today. So why we need storage? Okay, yeah, why we need storage? Storage is for storing data, right? Yeah, you are adding data to your storage. So when it comes to data, data can be categorized into four major stuff. So when I say data types, you can just consider either your personal data or the business data or business application data. You can split them into four major categories. Mostly we deal with structured data when it comes to business application. Most of your business application, they store their data in a structured database, right? It can be Oracle, or it can be Microsoft SQL, or it can be Postgres, or any structured querying language, a SQL database, or relational database. So that is structured. And we also have this unstructured data, and we have this semi-structured data, and we have this quasi-structured data. Okay, so these are the four major categories that we will get to understand as we move along. And first, this week, we will deal with unstructured data. Okay, today and tomorrow, we will be mostly talking around unstructured. And once we complete the storage topic, we will move on to discussing the database. So whenever we talk about structured, it is a kind of backend tabular structured or tabular storage, or you can just call it as relational database, or you can compare it with the SQL querying language, or SQL database. Okay, so these are all considered as a structured data. So mostly your business application, they get their data stored in a backend database, which is more organized in a tabular format. So see, before getting into the data types, data is now everywhere, and data is actually money, right? So everything revolves around the data. So if a business loses its data, then it's equally losing their revenue. Okay, so data is everywhere now, you know, right? Everyone is generating traffic. In the last 5 to 10 years, data has become inevitable, and everyone, the number of mobile devices, number of laptops, desktops, number of software, online application, online storage has increased, right? So either it is a personal need or a business need, data is kind of getting increased over the last 5 to 10 years. It has exponentially increased, and we need a mechanism to handle those data. Data comes in different format, different structure, and we need to kind of ensure that the data is actually stored and accessed in a efficient way. Okay, so we have these four category of data that we deal with. So data is everywhere. So data is um, everyone is generating data, right? So now, right, when a person travels, he takes at least 500 to 1000 pictures in a small weekend trip, and maybe nowadays it is all video. It is now not just pictures and audio. It's all getting into a video format. So that is the reason is number of devices. When I say devices, it can be mobile, laptop, desktop, and other there are a lot of technology evolved, right? So there are a lot of devices through which you can take pictures, videos, and so on. So laptops, PCs, and a lot of devices have increased, and automatically whatever it is capturing, it's all data. Even your IoT devices, see, internet of things, it's like anything that is connected to internet, you can call that as IoT device. For example, your in your day-to-day life, you are seeing a lot of IoT devices, right? For example, in when you're going on the road, there are surveillance camera that is acting as a IoT device. It captures a lot of footages. It actually alerts that there is some traffic in a particular area. Your Google map is connected to these devices, where it is sending that the traffic is little heavy in this particular location. There is a lot of mobile usage in a particular area. So a lot of data is collected through so let me do one thing. I'll for now I will stop. There is a lot of disturbance on the line from your side. Okay, if in case you need to ask question, you can just unmute yourself. Okay, or else you can just stay on mute. Okay, fine. So see, Internet of technology or IoT devices, there are a lot of Internet of Things, right? So Internet of Things devices, you can consider a lot of different stuffs as IoT devices, your surveillance camera, and even a lot of people are staying abroad and they are monitoring, surveilling. Surveillance is done for their home, and even in modern devices, like even in your refrigerators, if something goes out of stock, it automatically alerts the grocery provider to come and refill that particular content, or whatever is getting sold out in a supermarket or even at your home these days, right? So a lot of data are getting generated, and they are all connected to internet, and in some cases the business application are just connected to their intranet, and it is being utilized, right? So now, let me just do one thing. So when it comes to data types, these are the four major category. And when it comes to data concept, there are again different categories. I would say there is relational data, which is again structured SQL database, and we have this non-relational data or big data, which is kind of not the data is not kind of related to each other. And we also have huge amount of data. We call it as big data, and we also have data which can be conceptualized as analytics concept. Okay, so I will come to this part. So the data types, you have four categories. Data concepts, you have again four major grouping. And when it comes to data role, nowadays there are a lot of roles that has come, right? Data engineer, data scientist, and so on. I'll explain what are those roles and how they are different from each other, and what are their tasks, what are their roles and responsibilities, and so on, right? Now, data get generated from two major categories of system when it comes to business. Okay, when it comes to business, there are two major categories of data sources. Okay, so this is mainly on the business perspective, right? So whatever data that we are storing on Microsoft Azure, it is all mostly related to businesses of customer, right? So personal data, you store it in Google Drive or OneDrive or whatever different data storage mechanisms like Dropbox or whatever. You are storing it in a different public medium or public social medium integrated application. But when it comes to business application, there are two different systems we categorize it: OLAP and OLTP, right? Online analytical systems or analytical applications, analytics, analytical processing application, online transaction processing, application, right? These are the two category of data processing solutions that generate data, and it stores in a particular mechanism. Okay, I'll come to that, and we will get to understand more and more about what is the difference between relational, non-relational, OLAP, OLTP, structured, unstructured, and so on. So I'm just trying to set a context here on what are the different types of stuff that we are going to learn, and gradually we will discuss all these topics today and tomorrow. So we'll get into practical mode very shortly. Okay, so until then we need to get some kind of context set here before we get into it. Okay, so data consumers, okay, people who consume the data to take business decisions, or to take people might consume the data for their necessity, right? So data consumers are there, data engineers are there, data analysts are there, data scientists are there. Okay, so we'll get to understand one by one a little later today or tomorrow. But now, coming to the initial grouping that we had, the structured, unstructured, semi-structured, and so on, I will try to get little more understanding on this. Okay, so let me try to compare it in little more details. So when it comes to data, as I told you, structured data is nothing but your databases or relational databases. And you know what are the relational RDBMS engines or systems that we have, right? So Oracle, Microsoft SQL, MySQL, and PostgreSQL, and there are a lot of different stuff that are there. So these are all the top four famous ones. Even the structured category can be from your business application also. Let me just, I don't know why there is a lot of background noise coming from.
Uh, Sorry, Stan.
Yeah.
My headphone have some problem.
Okay. So
Uh,
okay.
can you mute permanently for only for my mic?
Okay. I'm just trying that option. Let me see. 1 second.
If not possible, I will.
No, I've muted you, but then for some reason your line is coming on again and again. But yeah, leave it for now. I'll try to manage. So if I mute, if I enable global mute, no one will be able to unmute if they have question. Okay, that is the only problem. Let me just see. Okay. Yeah, for now let's continue. I'll manage that later. Okay, fine. So see now, these are all some kind of external or kind of purpose built database system, but there are some applications which are also integrated. For example, if you have your SAP, it also has its own SAP database, which they call it as HANA database, which is kind of integrated. That is also a kind of structured data. And even for your enterprise ERP or CRM application, Netisa. So these are all again application which has got integration to its own inbuilt database, or the database comes from the same party. Even in the olden days, we used to have mainframe that also used to have data, and some small access databases we used to have for some startup stuff. So at the end, so these are all relational database management system. We can just consider these are all software to hold the relational data, right? So these are all software that can be considered as software for storing the relational database. So again, relational, why the name relational database? See, it is not just storing the information about the content, but also it also maintains the relationship between the table. See, for example, so we are in a weekend, right? For example, if you are trying to log into Book My Show or Ticket Now or whatever site. Okay, so if you are trying to book a ticket, it asks you which particular country you are planning to book the ticket, and also it asks which state, and then which movie, which theater, and which cinemas, and so on, right? And these data are stored in different table, okay, and they are linked to each other, and they are related to each other. And in this table we will have a primary key, and in the other table we will have a foreign key which will be linked to the primary key, and will have a relationship between the tables here. So country is a table, state is a table, movie is a table, cinemas is a table, and the different seat structure in that particular theater is a table. So we will have primary key and foreign key linked to each other, and we'll also have some indexes which will act as a reference point for linking these database. So the relational database, it is a kind of group of tables linked to each other or related to each other in order to provide a complete application for the business, right? So generally the data's relationship is stored in a flat way. It's a kind of two-dimensional table. You have one primary table and it is linked to a different table where you have the actual data coming from. Mostly in order to access the content on a structured database, we use SQL, right? Structured querying language. This is a kind of querying mechanism through which you access the data. This is a kind of standard, or it's a framework through which you go and access your data. If you want to, you can just call SQL as a programming language which goes and reads, write, modifies, process, query the information that is stored in a database. So SQL is a framework, SQL is a programming language through which you go and modify, append, read, write, query the information that is getting stored in your database, right? So this is all about uh, the introduction of structured. So we will have a dedicated one-day session on database at the end. But today we are going to focus more on the unstructured category here. Okay, when you say unstructured, unstructured can be any data that doesn't follow a particular structure. So your video, even within video these days, there are a lot of high definition videos. There are regular MP4, different format of videos these days. There is an audio file, and you have your images stored as JPEG or PNG or GIF files or whatever, right? So even your official documents like your Word document, Excel document, so all these are kind of categorized as unstructured. So you can consider the media. When I say media, your MP3, digital photos, audio, video files are unstructured, and then your documents are your text files. It can be a regular TXT file, or it can be a Word document, or an Excel spreadsheet, or a presentation, or even in to certain extent there are a lot of data coming out of your business application in a document format. So those, for example, it can be a HTML file, or it can be a web XML file. There are a lot of different stuff. So in simple, these data doesn't follow any rigid schema. See, before storing any data within the structured category, you have to define the schema. When I say schema, see, generally before storing the data into your database, you define what is the row, what is the column, what kind of content you are going to have in that row, whether it is a variable or a character, or how many characters, how many numeric you will allow there, and you define the structure of that particular database, that we call it a schema. Schema is defining the layout and the structure for your database before you even store the data. So structured databases follow that, but then here in unstructured, there is no rigid schema here. So it kind of accepts any data that comes from your different application. Either it can be a Word document, or a text document, picture, or a lot of different stuffs, right? So all these are considered as unstructured category. And even as I told you, these content might come from a IoT device also. When I say IoT device, there is a surveillance camera that is continuously capturing the current state of the traffic, or a current live meeting that is happening elsewhere in the world, and it is continuously streaming the data real time live online, right? So even it can come from different source of IoT devices or surveillance cameras or different stuff. So now for unstructured category, okay, so what we generally do in Azure, we have to go and create a concept called storage account, and within that storage account you create something called container. I mean, mainly it is a storage container within which you go and store your data, right? Now I'll come to that part shortly. Okay, so before going into storage account, storage container, and all those stuff, I will just give you some briefing on the other two categories which I have listed here, right? So I'll just give you some briefing here, and then we will discuss that later. Right now, this one, the third category, which we call it as semi-structured or semi-structured, it's a kind of aggregated data, or you can just call it as steaming data. Generally, this semi-structured data, they are all internet-bound data, which is kind of stored in a key value pair. Okay, so for example, you can just consider your not only SQL database, your Cosmos DB or what do you call MongoDB. There are a lot of varieties of NoSQL databases, your HD Insight. So these are all categories which you can consider as semi-structured data. So there is a big list which I will be explaining shortly. But now, so this doesn't follow any particular schema, but you cannot say that there is no schema at all. Okay, it has some level of schema. Okay, but it varies from one particular database to one particular database. So that's why it is called as not only SQL database. It can be in a non-structured category, or it can be in a different format. So you can call semi-structured database as a aggregated or a steaming kind of data. Now, when it comes to quasi-structured data, quasi-structured, it's mostly the data that comes from your social media application. Nowadays, you know, right? There is a lot of social application called, let's take an example, X, right? Which used to be again known as Twitter before. So Twitter, and if you go to a lot of your social application like Facebook or whatever, you have a lot of comments, tagging, categories, grouping, and you have blog post which is linked to another particular website and so on, right? So these content which comes from your social media application especially, right? For example, your what they call blog post, right? Blogs, comments, tags, what is that, tweets, and then your responses, chats, everything. Okay, so those category of data are kind of considered as quasi-structured. So semi-structured, as I told you, not only SQL database, even some web application or web pages like your XML or your JSON file, which is mainly used for infrastructure as a code, right? When you are creating your infrastructure, nowadays you are using YAML or JSON files. Those are all kind of considered as a semi-structured category of data. So we will see a little more about this in a while, but then for now, this semi-structured MongoDB, Cosmos DB are good examples of that. Okay, and especially your online analytical processing application generally uses your semi-structured category. Okay, whereas if you ask me what exactly the structured category of databases are integrated to, your online transaction processing applications are generally linked to your structured database. So when I say online transaction processing, as I told you just a minute back, anything, see, for example, I took an example of movie online ticket booking, right? Online movie booking or movie ticket booking, or even it can be your what do you call your train ticket or bus tickets booking, or even if you are sending money from one account to another account, or money transfer. um, See, these are all small simple transactions that you make today you will be booking ticket, tomorrow someone else will be booking ticket. So this will continue to happen. These are all online transaction processing applications. So these are all some good examples. Okay, so booking your ticket, sending money, and then anything that is of short transaction, you can consider that as a online transaction processing application. For those application, on the back end you use structured databases, right? And for unstructured category, it is mainly online analytical processing system, OLAP systems, that is generally used for storing the data on semi-structured. Now let me just quickly do it. See, especially if you ask me what is the huge source of data, I would say 90% or a majority of the category or unstructured category. See, the reason is uh, structured data are being sourced through some business application, right? Mostly. Whereas unstructured data can be human generated, it can be machine generated. When I say machine generated, nowadays, you know, right, there has been a lot of evolution, a lot of satellites are getting deployed I mean, outside of the earth, and there are a lot of images that is coming out of satellites. It will be very huge size, right? Not only satellite images, even there is a lot of weather monitoring, seismic images, a lot of stuffs are monitoring your atmosphere data. So these data are very huge in size, right? The scientific data, the seismic data, the photographs coming out of your surveillance camera, the border security data, traffic videos, CCTV footages, your radar, sonar data. See, uh, unstructured data, it's I would how I can just categorize it. I would say machine generated or machine generated data mostly comes into unstructured. See, this can be a huge list, right? Machines, robots are generating, surveillance cameras are generating, traffic videos are being sent across internet, and you also have human generated data. When I say human generated data, see, there are a lot of input forms. You go and book a ticket, or you go and fill a registration, or you complete a survey form, and you go and do a clickstream data. You go to internet, Facebook or elsewhere, there is a lot of links that it comes in. You click something or you accept something, and even when people are playing on the internet, there is a lot of gaming related data. Each move of a particular player, everything is getting captured and it is stored somewhere, right? And see, these are all human generated data, individually generated, but still it's also huge content. So all these are coming and getting stored as unstructured category. Some of them are real time. As I told you, real time means the traffic related stuff, or even the online gaming. um, there are a lot of stuff which are live current. Okay, there are a lot of um, meetings that are going on. Prime Minister is giving a kind of speech, or there is some discussions going on in the parliament or wherever, right? So all those are real time data. It is kind of live streamed, it's kind of on the fly on the internet. It is made available. Or there are certain data which is near real time. Okay, when I say near real time, it gets some time to process, and it comes as a batch processing data. See, real time data, we can call it as a steaming data. Near real time data, it is kind of grouped into a batch, and it gets stored. So there are two major categories: batch data, which comes as a grouping. For example, your business application, they make the business documents into a zip file, and then they compress it, and then they send it over. This is not live, but then it is near real time, where things are being accumulated as a batch data, and then it is being sent across. So some data are real time, which are steaming data, live data. For example, if you are getting non real time data for your navigation, or while you are driving, you if you are getting non real time or near real time data, it is not going to be of any use, right? So your navigation or your tracking has to get real time live data. Okay, even fraud detection, or if someone is making or utilizing your account, or if they are misusing your account, you should be able to get the alert immediately, right? Even if there is some kind of issue on your system or server or whatever, the notification alerting has to be real time. It cannot be delayed, right? So all these human generated, machine generated data, it is generating a lot of huge volumes of data. Not huge data alone, it is also generating huge volumes. So in order to tackle all these things, the solution that we are giving for different purposes has to meet out the needs. So ideally, you need to understand what kind of offering product are available in the cloud provider, and you need to understand the type of data, the business requirement, and then you need to match accordingly for the business requirement. Okay, so yeah, before we getting into the storage account, um, as I told you, especially in the last 10-15 years, things have drastically increased, right? So after Facebook, now Facebook users are sending 50 million messages on a like every minute, right? And again, there are around 5 million videos that are being watched every minute in Facebook. Similarly, Walmart as a company, they are making around millions of transaction in a particular minute, and they are generating huge amount of data. See, it's not about social application or social networking application. Nowadays, there is a lot of online transaction that is happening. Right, everyone now, right, next 1 week it is going to be all busy shopping in Flipkart and Amazon, and that is also going to create a lot of transaction and billing, parceling, courier interaction. A lot of things has to be done behind the scenes. All these are large volumes of data that is getting generated. So that is what we call it as big data. Big data is nothing but huge volume of data, which is like a significant amount of data that are getting generated. And obviously, when there are a lot of offers and stuffs that is attracting the customer, people will fall into the trap, and they will start purchasing stuffs. And see, there will be very huge volume of data that will be generated. So big data stands for large volume of data. It's not huge size data. Huge size data is like one file is 2 GB, 10 GB, or 1 TB. That is huge size data. Large volume of data means too many transactions are happening. So tomorrow or day after, Flipkart is going to experience huge volume of data on a particular Monday. Like it's going to be too much of traffic. I think the sale starts tomorrow, I guess, if I'm not wrong. So I think some of the sales are already started. So there is going to be large volume of data. It could be both structured and unstructured. Within big data, it is not going to have only structured data. See, some application, see some activities, for example, who is selecting which kind of product, and what is the content that they are adding into the cart, and all those stuff. So some data will go and stored in a structured database, some data will go and stored in a semi-structured database, and something will be in a unstructured format. So it will be a combination of different data types, okay, structured, unstructured, and so on. And it's not about, clearly not about the amount of data, but big data is dealing with large volume of data, large transactions of data. So which means like, for example, if the business want to understand how they have performed, which particular product was of huge demand, and those are all the stuff which data analyst, data scientist will dig deep into what kind of sales that they have made, and then they will understand and help the business to achieve better sales the next time, or they will plan accordingly, right? There are many type of databases. Okay, there are many type of categories nowadays. You have graph database, document database, key value database, relational database, columnar database, and so on. So you will get to understand the category of database little later. Okay, I'll come to that portion little later, but now I don't want to continue too much on the theory part. Let's go and dive deep with Azure now. So for now, until this minute, I was just giving you a context. Okay, so there are variety of data, there are variety of concept, there are variety of processing solution, there are variety of roles that are involved in um, the data also, right? Data analysts, and then you have data scientist, and so on. I'll compare these roles. Just give me a second. I'll come back online. Sorry about that. So I got some call that cannot avoid. Okay, so now coming to Azure. Okay, so in Azure platform, if you want to store data, okay, so what you have to do first is you have to first create a storage account. So now let me show you how to get all these stuff done in a practical way so that we don't continue too much on the theoretical aspect. So storage account is primarily to store the data, right? To store the data, and this is the base storage type or option before you go and store the data. So Azure storage, it's a kind of primarily for standalone usage, and again it is a Microsoft managed storage solution, right? So that means if it is Microsoft managed storage solution, whatever on the back end, right? Disk replacement, disk upgrade, firmware upgrade, storage expansion, all these are taken care by whatever related to your physical storage. It's all taken care by Microsoft. That's why it is called as Microsoft managed storage service. And you can also call it as a cloud storage solution. See, even you can compare the storage account like your Google Drive or your OneDrive or your Dropbox or whatever, and by default this storage account is highly available. When I say highly available, by default when you go and store data within Azure or any cloud provider, Amazon S3 or whatever, the data gets distributed into three different distinct copies. Okay, the very minimal thing, you have three different copies that can be either stored in three different storage array in the same data center, or it can be scattered across multiple physical data centers, or even it can be on physically different geographical region also. So it is highly available, and you have a lot of options to enable encryption, and then you have options to secure the data flow by enabling SSL encryption and all those stuff. You also have the option, it is highly durable, and obviously you can it is unlimited, virtually unlimited data. You can scale it up. Okay, so these are the four primary characteristics. It is highly available, secure, durable, scalable, and also it is as I told you, it's not just highly available, it is kind of redundant and resilient across different data center. So when you want to store data in Azure, you have to first create a storage account, and it automatically gives you all the benefit. And it is serverless. When I say serverless, you don't have to have any storage server or separate system to manage it. You can automatically have control through online web portal, which is Azure portal. You can access all the data. Okay, so here when I say Microsoft managed solution, Microsoft takes care of patching, updates, maintenance, management, and so on. Even if there is any critical issues or anything that needs to be addressed, Microsoft will take care of on your behalf. So now let's go and create a kind of storage account. So go to Microsoft Azure, and if you go to your pane here, you have the storage account, and you can select that. Now there are few important points that they have mentioned. So when you create a storage account, even though it is virtually unlimited, there is a limit per storage account. Okay, per storage account you can have up to 500 terabytes of data. That itself is huge, right? And you can also see that you can use it as a general purpose storage account, or you can also use it as a not only SQL data store. So you can use it for message queuing, you can use it for file shares, and so on. So it is multi-purpose. Okay, storage account, you can use it for structured, unstructured, and various categories. And also you have different tiering. You have hot tier to store frequently used data, and also you have cool tier, which can be used for infrequently stored data or rarely accessed data. I'll show you how to categorize them, how to enable lifecycle management, and so on. But for now, let's go and create it. Okay, fine. So as I told you, it is Microsoft Managed Data, highly scalable, redundant. That's all fine. So see here, there are 5 categories. I'll explain each of these categories shortly. Okay, there are 5 major categories. So you have the blob storage, you have the data lake storage, you have the Azure file storage, queue storage, and table storage. There are 5 different categories of options that you can use for storing your data. So blob storage, data lake storage, file, queue, and table. Okay, when it comes to blob storage, from the name itself, you can understand it is binary large object. Okay, that's what it is called as blob storage or binary large object. So it is an object storage like your Amazon S3. Here we have blob storage where you can store the objects. Okay, object storage, or you can call it as unstructured storage, where you go and store the unstructured data. You can store images, audio, video, documents, text files, any kind of files, right? So data lake and file, queue, and table we'll get to understand shortly. So now I have created a storage account, and if you want to store the object content, so okay, what you have to do is you have to, okay, let me create a resource group. Here I will just give it a name for your storage account. So as usual, you select the subscription, you select the resource group, then comes your storage account. See, generally these storage account are internet accessible storage. So which means whatever name that you are going to give for your storage account, it has to be unique across Microsoft Azure solution, right? So if you are giving some name, no other customer should use the same name. Okay, see here there are some limitations and stuffs that you need to take care of. The name should have to be unique across all existing storage accounts in Azure. So that means in Azure platform, it has to be unique. So even if your customer has used a particular name, you cannot use that name in your account. So it has to be unique across Azure solutions. Okay, for example, if I just say Stan, okay, probably it is already used, right? See, someone has already used it. And let's say Anto, possibly it is also already used. So you have to use a unique name, and there are also stuff that they have mentioned. It must be minimum of 3 characters, and it can be up to 24 characters. And very important thing, it has to be only lowercase letter and numbers. You cannot have uppercase also. For example, if I just say ANTO 1 2 3 4 5, maybe the name is available, but it contains uppercase, so it will not allow. So you have to understand that it has to be okay, unique. So for example, I'll just say stan storage account 001. Okay, now you can see that it might be available, it is available. So based on the performance category, redundancy category, I can also add some more naming here. For example, if I want to identify that this is a standard account, I can just call it as STD. And if it is a specific redundancy category, I can also specifically mention it is local redundant storage and so on. Now, I can just go and select the region. Okay, so wherever your business users are located, you can just select the appropriate region, which is closest to the end users, the business or the end users. Now, when it comes to performance category, there are two types, right? Standard and premium. So in simple, any cloud, okay? So if you generally go for standard, what they generally use on the back end is hard disk drives, which is magnetic drives, right? The old um, type or the legacy type of disk storage, right? Where you have this plater, spindle, and all those things. Premium is always SSD, the solid state drives, which is your flash drives. Okay, so you can just select the performance based on that. So here, okay, so if you are looking for better performance, for example, if you are using your data for storing um, blob blob, or for example virtual memory and all those stuff, you might have to select premium category for that. Now comes the important grouping, redundancy. Okay, when it comes to redundancy, it is based on the SLA or based on the requirement for your customer. For example, if the customer wants very high availability, they will go and increase the number of copies that we want to store, or number of copies of your data. So by default, you have LRS. LRS means local redundant storage. So here with local redundant storage, you have 3 copies. Okay, so number of copies is the same. And then the name local means all the 3 copies are stored in local data center or the same availability zone. So in the same available, if the entire availability goes down, your entire storage is lost. Now we have the next category, which is called zone redundant storage. So zone redundant storage, it's mainly your 3 copies of data are getting stored in, sorry, 3 copies of data are stored in 3 data center, or it is scattered in 3 availability zone. So your availability increases. Even if one physical data center goes down, your data will still be available. The next category is geo redundant storage. Okay, so here, if your data needs to be available even if the geographical region is down, then you go and choose the geo redundant storage. In geo redundant storage, you have 6 copies. So here 3 copies in primary region, and then 3 copies in secondary region. Okay, so that's how the data gets stored. So there are 3 major grouping: LRS, ZRS, and GRS. So now, if the storage array failure can be tolerated, so even if one storage array fails, your data will still be available. And you cannot tolerate data center level failure. If the data center level failure is there, then your data will not be accessible. So here it tolerates data center failure also in zone redundant. So what is the level of failure it doesn't tolerate? It doesn't tolerate regional failure. So if there is some outage on entire East US or the entire region, then your entire data is gone in the ZRS grouping. Now this one, it tolerates availability zone failure, which is data center failure, and also it tolerates regional failure also. So your data is completely available even if the primary region or the entire region goes down. So now there is more options to this. So here, when I said 6 copies, I did not say that all the 3 copies will be in 3 different data center or 3 different availability zone. So I said 3 copies in primary region, 3 copies in secondary region. What if you want the data to be stored in 3 different data centers in the primary region and 3 different copies in the secondary region into different data center? So for which you need to go with geo zone redundant storage. You need to go for combination of types here. So there is one category called geo zone redundant storage. So what that means? Geo zone redundance means it is again 6 copies, 3 copies here, but they will ensure 3 copies in primary is in 3 different availability zone. Similarly, 3 different copies in secondary is in 3 different availability zone. That means 6 copies in 6 different availability zone. So it is geographically redundant as well as it is zone redundant. It is distributed in different data centers in primary as well as secondary. Whereas here, you have 6 copies, but probably 2 copies are there in the same data center in primary. 2 copies of data are there in the secondary. So you are not guaranteed that you will have data available if a particular data center goes down in the primary or secondary. But here you have that guarantee provided in geo zone redundant storage. There is one more grouping which is called RAGRS. Okay, RAGRS means read accessible geo redundant storage. See here we have 6 copies of data. So there is 3 copies of data in primary, there is 3 copies of data in secondary, and here the secondary data, the secondary copy, it is available only when the primary region goes down. So automatically your users or the business application will get connected to the secondary data center if the primary region is down. So your data is not readable by default. Whereas here in RAGRS, okay, your secondary copy becomes a read only copy. So the primary 3 copies in the primary data center or primary region are read writable, whereas the 3 copies in the secondary region are read only. Okay, so whereas here the secondary copies becomes available only when there is failure in primary region. So until that time you cannot read or you cannot access, even you cannot just read the data in the secondary. Okay, so now this option is available by default. Okay, you have the secondary copy available. What if you want to have read accessible geo zone redundant storage, then you can go for the last category, which is read accessible geo zone redundant storage. So the more the redundancy, more the availability, higher the pricing. Okay, so you keep that in mind. So you have to ensure that you convey this message to the business owner or the application owner, so that they understand if they want more availability and resiliency, redundancy, or high availability, then they have to pay extra. Okay, now the last category is read accessible geo zone redundant storage. So which means 6 copies, all these things are there, and then plus you also have 3 copies read writable, 3 copies read accessible, read only in secondary. That's what we call it as read accessible geo zone redundant storage. So these are the 5 or 6 categories we have, right? LRS, ZRS, GRS, GZRS, RAGRS, RAGZRS. There are 6 categories of redundancy option which you can choose based on the customer application requirement. So now if I go to the drop down, I could see only this much, right? LRS is there, GRS is there, ZRS is there, GZRS is there. Where exactly is the read access RAGZRS? So that is the check mark here. The check mark option is the combination of RAGRS and RAGZRS. If I'm choosing this one, so now it is RAGRS. If I don't want read access on the secondary region, then I can uncheck this. So only if the primary region goes unavailable, the secondary data will be available. Okay, now if I just select this, okay, so it will be the secondary region data is read accessible, RAGRS. And if I want RAGZRS, now I have to select this combination. If I choose LRS, that option will vanish because it is not applicable for LRS and ZRS. So read accessible concept is applicable only for GZRS or GRS. Okay, for geographically redundant storage, and the GZRS read accessible option is applicable. Now I will just create a standard with LRS option. We'll see what difference it makes. Okay, now let's go and review and create it. Just I have to give the name and select redundancy and performance option. Remaining it's all default. See, some cases you need to be little careful. For example, by default these options are enabled here. Okay, so soft delete for an example, right? So soft delete is enabled by default. So soft delete is something like a recycle bin, you can assume. Okay, so whenever you want to avoid data getting vanished because of accidental deletion or human error, what you can do is you can enable this soft delete. So in simple words, in your operating system you have the recycle bin, or in your mobile you have that recycle bin, right, where you have the data stored for 1 week or maybe for 30 days, from where you can restore in case you need that file or image. So soft delete is kind of not permanent deletion, it is temporary deletion to, I would say, recycle bin for an example, because we are used to this name, right? Recycle bin has been in the Windows operating system for a very long time. You can consider this as a recycle bin, where this is for data, I would say, protecting protecting data from accidental deletion or even modification. If someone accidentally deletes it or modifies it, you can just go and bring back the data from your okay, let's not use this word modification because that is more into snapshot, but I'll say protecting data from accidental deletion. So if there is a human error, or if the data has got accidentally deleted, you can go to your recycle bin and you can restore it. So by default you can see that it has got soft delete for file shares, it has got soft delete at the container level, even at the blob level. So you can enable it for file share, you can enable it for the entire storage container, or you can also enable it for the individual sorry, you can enable it for your individual file objects. Here in Azure, we call it as binary large object blob. So you can enable it for your blobs or your containers or file share. By default, the data will be retained for 7 days. That is the default retention period. So which means if you are creating a storage account and storing some data, and if you are deleting it, even after deletion, your storage account will have that data for 7 days and you will have to pay for it. Okay, and again you will not be able to delete the storage account until the soft delete duration retention period is crossed. Okay, so I'll just uncheck these things for now so that I can just delete the storage account if I don't want it. So this is one area, data protection is one area which you have to be little careful. Okay, by default it gets enabled, and it's really needed for business requirement. But if in case they say I don't want that, you can just uncheck that. Okay, so if you have a question around the charge or the cost, so active data charges are equivalent to soft deleted data charges. So which means you have to pay double the cost. Okay, so whether it is in soft deleted state or active state, your data you have to pay for both the cost. So you can have up to 365 days, if I'm not wrong. You can have retention period up to 1 year is what I think. Let me double check on that. I'll show you how you can efficiently use that options. Okay, let's see. I'll show you some demo shortly once it is created. So let me also go and create one more category. So we used to have two different versions, okay, general purpose version 1 and version 2. Now it is all version 2. There is no option to choose between V1 and V2 anymore. So now I'll just create a different category now. See, when I select premium, okay, so when I select premium now, so automatically it gives me option to go and store only these category of data. So I don't see an option for geo redundant. So if you are going for premium performance, geo redundancy is not applicable. So with premium performance, you can have the data only in LRS and ZRS. So your data can remain either in the local availability zone or within the same region. All the copies should have to be in the different availability zone. So these are the two options that are applicable in premium. So when you go for premium performance, so when you go for premium performance, you get the option only for LRS and the ZRS. Because see, when people are asking for better performance, right? So lower latency, better throughput, better performance, and all those stuff. So you cannot store the data in different geographical region and expect premium performance. So obviously, so you cannot support geo redundancy in premium. So in standard redundancy, sorry, in standard performance you can get LRS, ZRS, GRS and all stuff. Okay, but then the premium category gives you only local redundancy and zone redundancy. You cannot have the data stored in geographical stuff. So there are three categories: block blobs, file shares and page blobs. So I'll explain the difference between these things. Okay, you have the binary large object blob storage category where you have various subsection, right? So primarily your blob can be categorized into three major stuff. Number one, you can have block blob. The next one, you can have page blob, and you have the append blob option. There are three options. Okay, the first block blob, it is mainly for unstructured data. Okay, so unstructured data means you can store video, audio, text, documents, images, or whatever, right? All those unstructured category can be stored in block storage or block blob. Page blob is mainly for your operating system virtual memory or virtual hard disk. Okay, so VHD file. It's mainly for your page file or your virtual memory. Okay, the next category is whatever is appending in nature. For example, if you are storing log files, generally the data gets appended, right? What happened at a particular time, what event got generated. So all those are appending files in nature. So if there is a kind of sequentially streaming data or log file data, those are all generally get stored in append blob. So append blob is fine tuned for the content or the documentation which are appending in nature, or which gets sequentially stored in particular stuff. So, and again, the blob storage, you can again store it in, or you can group it in three different tiering. Okay, there are three different tiering here. So hot blob, cold blob, and archive blob. So by the name itself, you can just see hot, right? Hot means whatever data you are frequently storing and frequently accessed data, read, write, or whatever you are doing, you can store it in hot. So for example, with hot category, you can create the data anytime, you can delete the data anytime, you can do whatever you want. So anytime creation, anytime modification, anytime changes can be done. Okay, creation, modification, deletion, or updation, or whatever, right? So etc can be done on the fly. But for the hot category, the cost is comparatively high, because you are accessing it anytime, you are modifying it anytime, deleting it anytime. Whereas the next category is cold category. Cold category means it is infrequently accessed data. So data that are rarely used or infrequently used. For example, people will access some data once in a week, once in a month, and so on. So for infrequently accessed data, you can use cold category. Cost is comparatively cheaper. Okay, but here you have to store the data for minimum of 30 days retention is needed in terms of storage. Okay, so whenever you store some data in the cold tier or the cold category, you, even if you delete it before 30 days, you will be charged for 30 days. That is what I'm trying to convey. So archive category, it's for rarely accessed data. See, in archive category, what we generally store, we store the historical data or the data that is very rarely used. For example, auditing, or if you want to go and find out what happened 5 years back, 10 years back in your banking transaction, or in some medical industry, they might go and ask some data for before 10 years or 5 years, right? Even some kind of auditing data, you go and access it very rarely. So these are all very rarely accessed data, and minimum storage, you have to have at least 6 months of you have to store the data minimum of 6 months. It is the cheapest solution where your data storage will be in few it's like very cheaper, and mainly you go and store the data here for long term. Okay, so for historical access, auditing, archive data set, you just go and store it. It's for long term storage. So I'll just show you where these options are. Okay, I'll explain that. I'll, okay, fine. So let's go and see how it looks like. Now, so this premium account gives you the page blob. So once after I create it, let's go and look at the difference. I'll just go for LRS. I'll just say Stan Premium LRS page blob 01. So it's within 24 characters, fine. So you can go only up to 24 characters. Now I'll just go and check these for safer side, then create it. Okay, let it get created. Okay, so even this blob storage, right? You can use it for uh, so when it comes to use case, you can not only for unstructured data, even you can store the backup data coming from your on-premises data. Even you can put your DR content here, business continuity purpose. Okay, even you can also store a lot of streaming data that is coming from a live streaming or a live cricket match or whatever, right? Even you can use a lot of streaming video, audio that is coming out, and this is intended for huge volume or huge storage of data. Okay, fine. I think I've just covered. So it's mainly for object storage. Okay, fine. So let me just see. Okay, any questions from anyone so far on what we have discussed? So here we have discussed about how to create a storage account, what are the different types, and this is mainly to categories.
Aston.
Yeah, go ahead.
So how you do the failover, suppose from one zone if there is a data center failure?
No, it's not like your server switch over. It's not like your server failover. Data is actually stored. Okay, let me show you this. It's Microsoft Managed Storage Solution. Okay, so to answer your question in short, but then I'll just go here. So this is again LRS, right? So this will not have the replication option turned on. So you will have replication at the object level. See, for example, if you want to replicate from one storage account to another storage account, those things you can manage on your own, or you can handle it on your own. Whereas if you're talking about geo redundancy, which is a kind of solution provided by Microsoft, those are all Microsoft managed solution. You are just enabling that option, and you have to pay double the cost based on the number of copies that you are storing. Okay, let me just say stan. So I'll just say stan standard GRS 001. Okay, so now it is getting created. So once after that is available, I'll show you where exactly the option is. So by default, it will start replicating to the pair region. For example, I have created it in East US, right? Automatically, your secondary copy will get stored in the West US. And whenever there is a failure in East US, your data will become available from the secondary region, which is West US. For example, if I'm creating um, a kind of RAGZRS, then you will also have a secondary endpoint available now itself. So for GRS, you will not have the secondary endpoint available now, but if the primary region goes down, your secondary will take precedence. Okay, now a standard RAGRS 001. So I've just enabled the read accessible geo redundant storage now, and then let me review and create it. So in short, like we don't have to really do anything from your side other than selecting the right level of redundancy option and right level of performance option. So based on the business application, business owner needs you can just go and select which option would be appropriate. Let's just wait for this to create. I'll show the difference. Okay, it's available now. See, if I go to this particular storage account, you will see that it has got more option. See here under the data protection, so not in the data protection, under the redundancy, you will see that it is already replicating to secondary, and also you can see that there are multiple endpoints that are available. Okay, see here is where I just go and do the failover if in case I want to failover from the primary region to secondary region. So you cannot select the secondary region, it is automatically chosen by Microsoft. You have the Azure pad region concept, right? If you are selecting the first storage account in East US, automatically it will go and stored in West US. If the end user or the application want to point out to West US, you can go and click on this view all. You will get the secondary endpoint with hyphen secondary. So primary is without that hyphen and secondary. The primary blob which is in East US, whereas the secondary blob will be having just hyphen secondary. And similarly, queue storage, blob storage, table storage will have hyphen secondary here. So secondary hyphen secondary will come from West US. Without hyphen secondary, then it is East US. So you can configure the endpoints, both the endpoints on your business application. So it is automatically failed over if there is a issue in East US. But if you manually want to trigger it, you can also prepare the failover. So, but the data synchronization has to get completed first. So the initial synchronization has to get completed, and after which you can failover here. Okay, did I answer your question, or you
Yeah.
have? Okay, yeah,
Thanks.
no problem. So we'll take a 10 minutes break. Any questions before I turn on the timer? Okay, I'll stop the record. I'll start the recording. Okay. So just for our demo purpose, I've created different categories, right? So as I told you, we used to have one more version or one more kind in the past. Okay, that is no more applicable. We used to have general purpose version 1, which is a kind of classic, or the ASM, Azure Service Manager time. We used to have one more version, but now it's all version 2, which is an upgraded category. Version 2 has brought a lot of enhancements when it comes to tiering, categories, and even archiving. A lot of facilities it has brought in. Okay, so version 2 has come up with a lot of enhancements and a lot of features and stuff, but version 1 is no more an option. Okay, it used to be an option available 2-3 years back, or 2 years back, but now it's all general purpose version 2 in Azure platform. So coming to the comparison, so we have created, let's say, let's take this name, right? Standard read access geo redundant storage, and let's see the standard GRS option. So let's see the difference here. Let me open up in a new window. I'm not sure if it is going to ask for login. Yeah, it has. So if you compare these two, so this is having primary as East US, secondary as West US. So this is also having the same, but the replication type is geo redundant storage. Here the replication type is read access geo redundant storage, RAGRS, right? So if you just go and look at the comparison here under the redundancy option, you see all the different endpoint here. This is GRS, right? Here you just see only the primary endpoint, whereas here in your RAGRS option, you have all the different endpoints from primary as well as secondary, right? So now if I want to failover manually, I have the option to prepare for failover and manually do it. But this option will get enabled only after all the data replication is done. Okay, and even you will see the same option here. But if I just click on prepare for failover, your secondary endpoint options will come out. Okay, for example, if I just want to do that, I can just do that here. I can also upgrade to RAGRS, and I can also downgrade to LRS. Okay, now at this point of time, but I cannot convert it from GRS to ZRS, or I cannot convert it from GRS to RAGZRS. So the zone option, both the zone options are not available here. But see, for example, if I want to just upgrade it, I can upgrade it. But I'll just show you how to do a failover, as one of you asked. I'll just say failover now. And what happens now, the primary region will be West US now. So all the secondary endpoint will become available. So I have just initiated the failover and it is waiting for the operation to be accepted. So that is how you generally failover in GRS option. But in RA GRS, already your secondary endpoints are already available. So you can, these are all now read accessible. When the primary goes down, your secondary endpoints will become read and modifiable. Okay, so you can, it will become read writable, RW. So as of now, these are all read writable and the secondary endpoints are read only accessible. Whereas when the primary goes down, your secondary endpoints will become a read writable endpoint. Okay, so that is the main difference here. And now if you look at the options on this particular stuff, and let me also show you one more thing. If I go to this PRE, premium LRS page blob, right? If I just open this in a new tab and
బాగానే ఉంటాయి. ఏదో ఒకటి నేర్చుకున్నా ఇంకో దానికి వెళ్ళొచ్చు.
let,
సేమ్ కొంచెం డిఫరెంట్.
okay, let me mute that line. Okay, so if you look at the options here, I just see only containers here. Okay, which means this is purpose built for something. Okay, so I've just asked this particular storage I need it for only page blob. So page blob content will get stored under containers here. So if I want to store the page blob file, if I just go to the container, I just need to create a container. Container is nothing but a folder. Okay, I'll just call it as stan folder 1. And then under the advanced category, let me just go with the default option. And now within that, when I just go and upload the data, I will get option to upload the data, which is categorized as page blob only. Okay, so this particular storage is purpose built for storing page blob, virtual hard disk, virtual your page file content. Okay, whereas if I just go and create one more different storage account just for an understanding, so you can also create storage account for purpose specific. For example, if I want to create a couple of file share for my customer, I don't have to really choose the other option and complicate it. Instead, what I can just do is I can just go and say, I just want to create premium file share and get it done. So that way your storage will be purpose built for premium file share. Okay, let me just go and create it. Now, if I go and check it, it will not have other options. It will have only file share options to be created. So which means storage account can be customized for specific customer use cases. If you want to store some files in the file share from business application, you can better create it as a storage account, only purpose created for file shares. Okay, so let this get created. Okay, now if I go and check here, it will give you only option to go and create a file share. Similarly, we had an option to create only container in the premium blob, page blob. Okay, so now I'll show you how to go and add some files or add some content. It is pretty straightforward. Before you go and upload the content, what you need to do is you need to create a folder. Folder is nothing but a container here. Okay, so let me just wait for few minutes. Oh, I think I'm playing around with that, right? I cannot make any modification. Let that continue. Okay, until the activity is complete, until the operation is complete, you cannot make any modification. So it's still going on. So that's the reason you are getting that option. That's fine. So now I'll just go and create a container. I'll just call it as stan folder 1. And here I can see if I have an existing storage account and if I want to use those policies or I want to bring that standards here, I can also select that existing account, but I don't have any standards defined. So I'll just go and create a new folder. And when I create a folder, there are important options here. So by default, it is going with private, no anonymous access, which means this is not internet accessible. It is accessible only within Azure platform. If I want the container to be accessed from the internet and so on, I can just go and change the access level. Okay, I can just go and say I want the data to be accessed from the internet. There is an option called anonymous action, which I will show you. Okay, for now we have created it internally as a private option. Here what I can do is I can just go and upload the files by selecting those options. So there are many other tools that are available which can be used from your Windows operating system, Linux operating system. I'll show the demo what kind of applications that you can install and which can be directly integrated to your storage account, and you can store data, access it, modify it, whatever you want to do, you can do it. I'll show that lab tomorrow. But now if I want to just upload some files from my local machine, I can also drag and drop here, or I can also just browse for the files and just upload it. Okay, it's that straightforward. Okay, it's not tough. You can just go and put some files here. So let me just pick and choose one text file, one PowerShell file, one zip file, and then you can just store whatever you want. Okay, so let me choose these three. And when I select these type of files, automatically here it selects the unstructured category. If I select virtual hard disk VHD file, then automatically it selects the page blob. So even accidentally, if you have renamed your virtual hard disk to some different format or different extension, you can just select this option. If it is a virtual hard disk file, you have to select page blob. Whereas for the regular unstructured category like text file, document, video, and all those things, you can select block blob. Whereas if you are just going with log files, okay, with whatever data which is appending in nature, you can just go and choose the append blob. So based on the nature of your file, the nature of your content, you can just go and change the type there. Okay, now if you have bigger size files, always go with higher block size. If you have very small files with less content, with kbs of content, you can just reduce the block size so that there is not much white space getting created. So based on the size of the files that you're uploading, the average size, you can go and choose the block size. So higher the file size, go for the higher block size. If your files are in kbs and smaller size, you can just choose a lesser block size. So it is all based on your average file size and content. So for huge data, choose higher block size. For example, if you have some files which will be 10 GB or 100 GB in size, then go for higher block size so that the upload and download will be much faster. But if you have multiple huge volumes of small files, go for smaller block size. Okay, now I already explained about the hot, cold, and archive tier. Okay, so whatever we are choosing at the container level, by default it is hot tier, so automatically it will get inherited. But if you want to override, for example, if you want to store these files for as a cold tier category to save some cost, or archive tier category for storing it for long term, you can also change it here. By default it will get inherited or inferred from your storage account configuration, but if you want to change it, you can also change it while you are uploading the file. Okay, that option is here. Now if you want to specifically upload into a subfolder, you can also select that folder or enter a folder name and upload it. So that's how you can just directly upload the files using the Azure portal itself. But I'll show you how to use third-party tools to upload the content tomorrow using Storage Explorer and third-party storage tools. I'll also show you how to do that. Now I've uploaded some files, right? So all these are under blob category, and even you can choose append blob if you want to. Just for an example, I'll just choose one file and then store it as append blob. Let's assume that this file is a log file. Okay, I'm just assuming it, and then I'll just choose it as a append blob. And it's all about understanding the file nature and selecting the right blob type category. Okay, now the size of the file, this zip file is 300 KB, and these are all very small files, the 30 bytes and 200 bytes and so on. Okay, so that is the size of the content. Now if I go and delete this file, Okay, what will happen? It will permanently delete the file because I don't have soft delete option enabled. Okay, so if I just delete this, it will delete the file. So you don't have any option to go and restore it. See, even if I just say show deleted blobs, you have only the current version option available. There is no deleted version. So if I want to have deleted version to be available, you have to go to your container, and specifically you can just enable the policies here. So for example, if I want to have the soft delete enabled, all the protection level information are available under data protection. Redundancy is mainly for replicating your data to different geographical region and have multiple different endpoint for primary and secondary region. Data protection helps you to enable the um, recycle bin. So if I want to enable the blob level recycle bin, I can just enable soft delete for the files, which is nothing but your objects, and I can store it for 1 day. Okay, so you can have up to 365 days, I guess, but let me just enter some number above 365 and then see. Okay, yeah, so you have option to have only for 1 year. Okay, not beyond that. Okay, 365 is the maximum, so I'll just go with 1 for now. Minimum, that is 1. So if I just save it, so you can now, if I go and delete the files in that particular storage account or container, so your data will still be available even after deletion. So for example, if I'm just going and deleting this, let's wait for the action to complete. Okay, that is failover, right? That's fine. So now if I just say delete, see the file has gone. But then if I just go and say show deleted blobs, you will see that the file is still available in your recycle bin, deleted state. So what I can just do, I can just select that and then I can restore it as well. So if I want to just click on this option, you will get undelete option. So you have the option to delete and undelete with recycle bin. Will be available. This is for your soft delete at the blob level. What if I delete the entire container, okay, the entire folder? So for which you have to enable a separate option. If you want to protect your container, container is nothing but your folder, right? So if I want to enable soft delete for container, I can just enable this. So you have option to enable at the container level and at the file level and the folder level. So this is for the folder level and this is for file level. Okay, so even if you delete the container, you can bring back the container if you have enabled soft delete option. What if I delete the entire storage account by accidentally I have deleted the storage account? Let's don't try that. So I'll just say I've accidentally deleted the storage account. So by default, it says the selected resources along with the related resources and the content will be permanently deleted, is what they are saying. If you are unsure of the selected resource, navigate to the individual resource and all those stuff they are mentioning. But by default, your storage account can be restored um, for maybe like I think 30 days, if I'm not wrong. Let's just delete it and then see. Okay, I've deleted it accidentally without understanding the impact. Now, 2 years back, Microsoft have to be involved if in case you need to restore the storage account. But now what you can do is there are two options. One, you can log into any of the existing storage account. And if I scroll down, you will see an option to recover deleted account. So you have an option here, or you can also go to the storage account and click on this restore option. See, for example, if you already have another storage account, you can go and use that option. What if I don't have any storage account? So you can use this option, restore option. Both are same. Okay, so for 2 weeks you have the deleted storage accounts that are available, but there is no guarantee that Microsoft provides you for your business. So you have to take backup. You need to enable recovery point objective, recovery time objective based on your business need. But this is an option that they give you to recover storage account for the last 2 weeks. Okay, so by default, 2 weeks or 14 days, I will be more precise. Okay, you have option to restore your storage account for the last 14 days. So I can just say standard RAGRS account. So it gives you the time also, deleted at what time, what date, and all those things. I can just select this and then restore it. Now it will go and recover the entire storage account for the customer. Okay, that option you can do it. So earlier, 2 years back, you had to go and raise a Microsoft case, work with Microsoft engineer, and then get it restored. And that is also on a best effort basis. There is no guarantee. Here, they give you option, but again, this is also a best effort support only. So I mean, there is no guarantee that it will always be available, but mostly your storage account will can be restored within a 2 week time frame. So it is available here. Okay, so it has been restored. What are the other options which we can see? Okay, this is premium file share, right? So certain things, if I create it for purpose built, for example, file share or object storage or blob, then you have the option to do only that much, right? So let me also show one more option here before we go into the other option. So see, enable permanent delete for soft delete items. Okay, this is a risky option. Okay, so fine. I'll explain about the versioning now. Any questions so far from anyone? Okay, now let me take that as no. Okay, fine. Just a second.
Stan,
Yeah.
what is that cool tier, Stan? When you
Okay.
are doing
See.
the
Yeah. See. For different businesses, data access rate or data access scenario will be different, right? Some data you might be regularly accessing. For example, there might be certain files which you will be accessing on a regular basis, daily or hourly or whatever. You will have continuous access to the data. Some files you will need to access it, but once in a month, once in a week, or once in a while, right? So those kind of data, if you are storing it in high cost storage, it is going to impact your business cost or business unit, or like I mean cost of your business unit, right? So in such case, if your data is rarely infrequently accessed, once in a month, once in a while, you can store that in a cold tier. So comparatively, it is much cheaper. Okay, so let me show you the difference here. So if you look at here, the pricing, yeah. So now, see, for the first 50 terabyte, for the hard tier, you're paying how much? 0.018. Whereas for the cool tier, it is 0.01. And then for the cold tier, it is 0.0036. Okay, it is much cheaper. And for the archive, it is even cheaper. Okay, 0.00099 per GB. So for the first 50 terabyte, see, you can see that there is a huge difference in terms of the pricing. Okay, so if you want to store rarely accessed data, put it in archive tier, and per GB you have to pay very less here. And then similarly, you are just paying only less than 30 cents, less than 40 cents for cold tier category. The pricing is very cheaper. Okay, that is number one thing. And let me one more important thing, you can also go for reservation. That is fine. So see here, if you are storing it for 3 years, if you are just saying Microsoft that my data is going to stay for 3 years, then it is much cheaper. So for 1 year reservation this much, and 3 year reservation it is this much for the hard data. For the cold data it is very cheap. For 100 terabyte it is only $84 if you are storing it for 3 years, especially for the data which you want for auditing purpose or historical requirement. For example, banking data, you might have to store it for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years also, right? Even healthcare also, in some of the European region, they are asking us to store for 20 years, 30 years. So if you're storing for more years, you get a lot of benefits. So in simple, hot is for frequently accessed data, cool is for infrequently accessed data, archive is for rarely accessed data. So based on your data access pattern, you can go and use the different storage tier, so that you can save a lot of cost. But again, you need to understand one more important thing. When you are storing data in archive, you are going to access it once in a year or once in 6 months or whatever, right? But when you go and access it, there is a cost associated for that. Okay, so when I say cost associated for that, see, frequently accessed data, you can access it anytime. You can just access it, delete it, modify it. But then when you're putting it in archive, it's like a backed up data. It's a backup content, right? You have to go and wait for the data to be archive data to be made accessible. It takes some time, and also for access also you have to pay for the archive data. So that is another thing you need to be aware of. If you look at here, there is a cost for read and write operation. When your data is in archive tier, the cost is higher. Okay, but if you look at here, the read and write operation cost is very cheap in hot, whereas it is not applicable in premium category. It is somewhat cheaper. The read write operation is cheaper in hot tier, whereas in archive tier and cold tier, the read write operation cost is very high. Okay, because it is accessed only once in a year or once in 6 months. So definitely it is not actually free of cost. If you want to read the data or access the data, then you have to pay more. Okay, but storing data, there is no cost. If you are writing the data to the storage account, it is all free, irrespective of hot, cold and stuff. It is all free. But when you want to write, read the data and append the data or modify the data, then you have to pay for it. Okay, for modification and reading, you have to pay more. So in simple, cold or the cool category is for infrequently accessed data. There are two categories within that, cool and cold. Nowadays there are sub options coming up. So where we were before we got here, we were discussing. Okay, what we were discussing. Okay, so let's see. We were about to discuss the tracking options. Okay, so we'll see how we can enable versioning and all those stuff. But before that, let me go and see if I can explain few more options while we create it. Now, let me just create standard LRS 001. Next. So here we have the option for security. See, if I want to access the data securely, by default for all the application based access or the REST API operational access, by default secure transfer is by default enabled. So which means you can only access it using HTTPS or the secure method of access, and allowing anonymous access on individual computer, containers. If you want to allow anonymous access on the containers, you have to explicitly call out. By default, Microsoft doesn't allow public access for the storage account. See, most of the challenge with these kind of public cloud offering and all, it's like by default earlier, maybe even in Amazon S3 and Azure Blob, when we go and create it, by default it used to be anonymous access by default, but now they have changed it to private access. If you want to access it, allow access for the container or the storage account from the internet, you have to explicitly allow it at the time of creation. But 2 years back, whenever you go and create something like Amazon S3 bucket or Azure blob container, it becomes an anonymous container by default. So which means you can access it from the public internet at the time of after it is created. Okay, now if you want to allow anonymous access for the individual containers, I can explicitly call it out, and I'll explain the storage account access shortly. Okay, so rest of the things I'll just explain. Sorry. Now the next screen under the networking, you have options, three options. You have option if you want to allow access for your storage account from the public internet, you can access the first option. And here it says enable public access from selected virtual network in Azure. Okay, and selected IP address. If you want to allow access only for a particular business unit or a particular virtual network or VNet or a particular IP range of address, you can also do that. So by default, whenever you go and create a storage account, it is open for all the VNets, all the network at the public level. You can access it through the internet. That's the reason we were able to upload the files from my home network to Azure storage account. But if you want to, sorry, just a second. If I want to disable public access and private access, I can just access only through Azure portal. If I just enable this option, you will not be able to access it from the public internet and from the VNet. Only you will be able to access it. And there are two options where you have the network routing option. If you want to access the data and send and receive data through Microsoft backbone network, you can also route the traffic through Microsoft backbone or through the public internet. Okay, nowadays you can see that the data travels only through Microsoft backbone. Okay, so that is what is Microsoft is also recommending these days, to have much better capacity, bandwidth, latency. So it is much faster. Okay, so data protection. Now I will just unselect this soft delete, which I have already explained. If you look at here, there is another option called point in time restore for container. This is called snapshot, or you can just associate it with versioning. For example, if you are creating infrastructure as a code, or if you are creating multiple changes are being made to a particular file. So if you are consistently updating the file and suddenly you want to roll back or go to the previous version of the file, so you can enable this point in time backup along with versioning, so that you can go and restore the content to a previous version. So let me just put it separately because it is another important question from the exam point of view. So versioning, it is mainly to keep multiple version of the same file, same object. Okay, so versioning to store multiple versions of the same object or the file in Azure platform. So for which you need to enable point in time snapshot or point in time backup first. Point in time backup is also called as snapshot. So it's not equal to regular daily or monthly backup. It's just a kind of point in time where you can maintain multiple previous versions of your object or blob, and then when there is a requirement, you can just go and roll back to a earlier version. So if you have accidentally modified or deleted, you can roll back to the previous version of the blob. Blob is nothing but your object or your file. Okay, in file shares we call it as file, but then that's fine. Okay, you can just if I just enable this, you get the option by default. If you enable point in time restore, you can see that soft delete also has to be in false. So there is a dependency. So soft delete is a dependency for snapshot for point in time. Okay, and you can also see that you get the option enabled below. So enable versioning for the blobs, so you can automatically maintain previous versions of the blob file. And also you can see that it also creates a log file. Okay, so whoever is changing, whoever is modifying certain activities that they are doing in the storage account, everything gets tracked. So this means logging is getting enabled. So logging, we call it as change feed. Change feed is nothing but log. So I will also enable it. So whoever is modifying it, deleting it, it is going to keep all logs for indefinite number of days. But if you want to have it stored for 1 month or 6 months or whatever, you can also change it. Okay, so you can go and specify the number of days you want to keep the change feed log. So for example, if I want to keep only for 1 day or 2 days, I can also do that. So, but I'll just go for keep all logs for now. And let me review and create it. So let me explain this versioning first, and then we'll move on to the next options. So mostly snapshot is tied to your versioning and soft delete. So here change feed is nothing but this is to keep track of your file creation, file modification, file deletions. All the activities will be done, taken care. So all the transactions or the activities will be monitored, and it will be kept at the blob level or even at the container level. All the changes are being taken care of. So once after it gets created, I'll show you where exactly the logs are getting stored. So let it get created. So most of you know what is snapshot, right? Snapshot is a point in time backup. This is to restore or roll back to a previous version in case of erroneous or accidental deletion or modification. So it just maintains the multiple versions.
Stan.
Mhm.
So if I have like a file with like multiple version, I'm
Mhm.
copying from one storage account to another storage account. So will all the versions of the file will be copied, or I need to specify it?
So you are replicating from one region to another region, right?
Yeah, I'm copying, basically doing an Azure copy, and I copy the file from
So
one sheet.
see, the settings, the configuration settings has to be identical. That is the best practice that you need to take care of. So here I'll show you. So all the log files will be stored in a separate folder within your container. So if I go to containers, you will see a folder called logs and change feed. So this is where your logs are getting stored. So when you start modifying, automatically you will see that the logs will get accumulated. I'll show you that. So here you get the option now. So because earlier I did not get this option because it was enabled, it was not enabled for anonymous access. So if I want to enable it for anonymous access, I can enable it and then just create it. So which means I can access it from public internet. The files will be allowed to access from the public internet. So let me try to upload some files. So let me put some files here. Okay, fine. Now, if I okay, by default, the soft delete option will be enabled. So in order to avoid storing the deleted soft data for longer days, I'll just reduce it. So it says the value must be less than the value that is set for soft delete. Okay, so that's fine. I'll just have 1 or 2 days for soft delete. Okay, so now let me just go and show you this. Okay, so if I go to my containers, so I'll come to the log file. Okay, so now if I just change something, Okay, let me just change something on that particular folder. Desktop. Just a second. Let me go to the right folder. Stand demo. Azure. Let me make some modification. I'm just trying to do some changes. What are the files present here? So let's say new SP, right? New service principal text. So I'll just open this, or else I'll just create a new file, new text file. I'll just say sample. Okay. So I have just some content. Okay. So now I'm going to upload that file. Where is that sample? Yes, sample. Okay, now I will make some modification to that file. Batch. Okay. And then I'm going to upload it. Let's see what happens if I upload it. You can see the timestamp. It is 750 for the previous file. I'm uploading the file with the same name. It says the following files already exist, sample.txt, right? So I have the option to overwrite here. Overwrite if the file already exists. So by default, it will not allow us to upload if there is the same a file with the same name exists. So you can overwrite it by uploading it. Now you can just see the timestamp has changed to 7:51:24 seconds, right? Now, if I just click on this and if I just go to view snapshot, you can see that that the snapshots are not there, but you can see that the previous version of the file is here. So the file from 750 version is here. So if I want to roll back, I can just select it and I can just make it as the current version. So if I go and access the content of this file, what will be the content? So I can just go and edit it here. You can see that the content will be HTML and title, both the lines. The latest content is here. What if I want to roll back or go to the previous version? I can just click on this and then go and look at the different versions available. And I can just select the previous version and I can make that as a current version. So the timestamp of 750 will become the current version and this will become a previous version now. So if I go and open it now, I will see only the first line here, right? So that's how you can roll back to the previous version. So what if I want to take a snapshot of this particular file, I can also do a snapshot separately. For example, if I'm going to make some changes to a large infrastructure as a code, or if I want to make some changes to a file where it is very important for the business, I can also make separate snapshot that can be stored for a particular number of days. So you can also do a manual snapshot, and if you enable versioning, automatically it takes care of your changes, and the previous version will be available for restoration. So you have both the options. So automatic versioning is also available. You can also go and create a manual snapshot based on the business requirement. Even you have the option to go and do it here. So let me see. I have the option. You can just select all the files and then do it. Here also I have the option to change policy. That is fine. Okay, let's give it some time. So for the change, see, logs have started coming here. So if I go to the log here, I will start seeing who has made changes on a particular date. So you can just see on 7th of October 2023, there is a new log file that is created, and within that you will be able to see that Apache file, which can be read using the Apache tool. You can find out what has got changed. See, it has been created as a append blob because this is a log file, so it will get sequentially added whenever there is a modification or whenever there is some changes happening. So now
Stan, what is there inside the log, the text file, the Apache file you are saying, right?
yeah, whatever you are changing, right? So I've changed, I've uploaded this file. So whatever you are making changes, so any creation, modification, deletion to your objects will be stored in that change feed log.
So can we see that the text format, like who did the changes? Like
Yeah.
or...
So it's a AVRO file. Let me try to read that using a text content. Let's see. It's a Apache tool. Apache viewer is there. Let me just see if I'm able to read it using. Okay, let me try to open it here only. Let me go to edit. Okay, it says only blobs can be edited. This is a kind of let's see. Six KB. Let's read it.
It's not like a normal,
No,
text
it's not a
readable
normal.
document.
I think it should be readable from Notepad, but it's a separate. There is a tool which you can use. So if you look at here, you can just see what has got changed, the previous version, which files have changed. So all those updates. So if you use a proper tool, you will be able to find out which file was uploaded at a particular time, which file was changed, and all those things will be available. Even Notepad, it's okay, but then Avro Reader, if there is a tool which supports AVRO, that will be good to use. So you'll be able to see that here. Okay, so sample.txt was changed. So all those content are here.
Okay, Stan. Yeah. Got it.
So going back
Thanks.
to no issues. So here, let me. Okay, so I think so. This is what it is. Okay, we are already close to 8 o'clock. So tomorrow we will see how to create a file share, how to mount it on Windows Server, and how to create or how to use third-party tools to access the storage account, how to use Microsoft Storage Explorer to use it, and also we will discuss about the different options available here, the static website, inventory, those options we will continue to discuss. For the next 2 days, we will continue to discuss around storage and then we will move on to database. Okay, so any questions on what we have discussed so far today? So we have a lot of content to cover tomorrow. Okay, so for now, we have just started with the basic storage account creation and the basic options that are available. Tomorrow, we will start discussing the file shares and the remaining advanced level options that are there. So I'm just opening the floor for any questions. Okay, if there is no questions in English, Tamil கேட்கலாம் question. Interesting. Okay, if this is the case, I should have covered one more small topic. Anyways, fine. Okay, so we will call it a day and we will connect back tomorrow 5:30. So keep practicing, start doing hands-on. That will enhance your confidence. Okay, thank you all for joining. I'll stop the recording. We'll